Before we talk to Roger Mahan, back in the day, they took our class photos all the way through school, the primers, intermediate, college, and looking back at the ones from primary school, all the kids look pretty much the same as any other primary school photo around the country. I was always put in the back and in the middle, probably because I was so tall. And I think these are great records of times gone by. And it's interesting how you change as the years roll by.
But the Argyle was a very reliable, good old car, and it did the job well.
All the way from Scotland, so they would have probably come over here on a sailboat.
Well, the Scots were away out in front as far as engineers went, and they built good equipment, and they built a lot of cars. Unbeknown to people today, because the names changed and they were taken over by other companies. But the Argyle was a good class car. The motor in this one here, it's actually a French motor, and they didn't start building their own motors until 1905. I've had a lot of enjoyment of the old Argyle, a reliable old car. It had a reasonable amount of horsepower, and I used to drive it down to the Needham Right and Brighton Rally for the first few years. And
how fast did it go?
Oh, you used to get along, well, if in a hurry, you'd get about 35 mile an hour out of it.
Wow.
But it ticked along comfortably at 30 mile an hour, which is quite a reasonable speed because...
Well, the roads weren't all that wonderful back
Oh,
then.
bloody awful, the roads. There are no such thing as tar seal roads over most of the country.
I was just a little bit in a town, and that was
That's
about
right,
it. Yeah.
and the main highways, and the rest of the roads, especially in mid-Canterbury, all the north-west, where they just blew all the fines out and you're left with a heap of stones.
Is the Argyle here? Whereabouts is?
It's straight behind us, actually, Bill.
Oh, yeah. Let's have a look at it.
Yes, certainly.
What was it like when you first saw it?
Well, it was basically all there. The parts of the body are still the original body. The floorboards, of course, were gone, and the wheels were in a bad way, so we had to fit other wheels on. But we fitted wheels which is the same size as the original, and the rest of the car is pretty original. We've had to do new floorboards and make some new mud guards for the front of it, but all the bonnet and that is as it left the Argyle
factory back in the day. Yeah. I'm just looking at the levers. It'd be difficult for the climb on this side, so I guess it's easier to get in on the left-hand side, but just explain the levers.
Well, the handbrake is just the old dray-type handbrake with a row of notches, same as the old gigs and wagons had. These are the forward gears here, and you come out, and second gear's up there, top gear's up there. Yep. This is reverse gear. Right. And pulls that back there. And
so you put that neutral on there?
That's right. Yep. But the Scots were very good engineers, and they're quite clever people. I'd like to lift the bonnet actually, and
sure,
to show you their bill.
Just tell me about this little, it looks like a trumpet.
Well, the earliest of engines were what they call dry sump, and they had an oiler on the dash, which was filled with oil, and you adjusted these little buttons up top. You adjust to the amount of drips you wanted per minute onto the big ends and the main bearings.
Sure.
And so it is virtually a dry sump motor.
So we've got a clutch and a brake here?
Yes, it is the clutch is actually becomes a fluid drive. It is Argyle had the patents to this clutch. If you want to stop in a hurry, we'll use what would be the clutch, and but if you start going uphill and the load got too much, the car slowed down until it matched the speed as to what the motor could handle. They were very advanced. It originally had a timber along the bottom of the chassis.
Yep.
And so there's wood, besides the steel work, which is a U-shaped section, there was timber down there as well.
Wow. Anyway, we'll have a look at this little engine.
The fan was used for cooling, especially where you're going uphill and your speed got down and the air couldn't get enough air through the radiator to keep them cool.
Wow.
But it's quite a big motor and a very sturdy motor, and you could either the twin cylinder car, the smaller ones, only had one set of pots, and then this one has 4, and the bigger one again has three sets of pots, which makes it a 6-cylinder.
Yes, yes. And that's just an oil sump at the bottom?
Yes. Yeah. They had one, they were very clever in a lot of ways, the little things which have been developed since, but these were sold with a fluid drive. They have a clutch, but you only use the clutch if you want to get into gear, stationary. But if you're going uphill, if the load gets too much for the motor, if you stay, leave it in top gear getting up a hill, the fluid drive will slow it down and take the load.
Excellent. Roger, some years ago we did you had this in your shed over at Geraldine there, and you were doing things to it, and it's a brown. I mean,
1904. It's the only car of this model left in the world.
Really?
Yeah. And there's a twin-cylinder one in England, but there's no 4-cylinder ones. The Brown brothers, they're still a trade under Brown brothers. They got pretty well bombed out during the war, and they wrecked the factory. But they found some old documents which they sent me, and they were just wonderful people. They were so, and they said it's definitely the only one left that they know of in the world. They never mass produced, but they made a lot of motorbikes, and you could call them mass production, I would think. But the cars only made them on special order. They were a very expensive car, and you had to be somebody haughty or somebody who wants something more expensive than anybody else.
Yeah, sure.
But they were well built and went very, very well. I met the Browns over in London, and they're great people. And of course, they are so delighted for me to have this car.
That's marvellous. Plenty of room in the back there for 2.
Well, the Barkers from Peel Forest, they bought the car on a trip back home, and they had a chauffeur for it, and it was chauffeur driven, and he looked after all the maintenance of it and polished it, and it was well looked after.
That's a cute little door.
Yes, but they travelled all over the place with it. We've got some pictures here of the big motor show in Christchurch even.
Wow.
But they were a very mobile car. Big motor, and the whole car was well set up.
It's absolutely marvellous to see the end, what you've done to it, from what you had and what you've done, what's sitting here now.
The chassis was chopped in half, and the front part was turned upside down, and the motor was put on it the other way around, and the drum irons were acted as a sledge at front, the chassis being over, and it drove a saw bench for a number of years. And so I had an old 4-cylinder Dodge at the time. I went up with Model T to pull it home, but Model T never had enough power, should have just paid out. So old 4-cylinder Dodge, a bit of a skid, and the sledge got hooked onto the sledge with the motor on, and which still had the radiator and bonnet on. But a lot of it was in the old barn, the stables at the Barker's old homestead, and so they were in great nick. And you might see I've got all these little brass plates of brown which were on woodwork there, and it's just a wonderful car, lovely to drive. It's got a big motor in it.
Is it the accelerator's on the steering wheel?
Yes, well that's that's right. We've got 2. We've got it's the hand throttle, and the other one is for spark, retard and advance the spark. When you start them, you've got to retard the spark, because my word, if they backfire, you finish up with a sore or broken wrist. And there's a dry sump, and those oilers in front, which you see there, are just them to get so many drips of oil down to the certain bearings of the motor.
Wow. So in 1905, you got your new car. There's a hell of a lot to think about when you're driving it.
Oh yes, I take good care. Well, when I got it going, it was nothing like as flash as it is now, but I drove down to Dunedin Brighton, and I went on 2 other Dunedin Brightons. First time down there, I was only 15-year-old, so I was a goer in those days too.
Sure. Yeah.
I had 1 or 2, a couple of other older people gave me a hand on bits and pieces, but the bulk of it I did myself.
Oh, good on you. Yeah, can we have a look at that engine?
Yes, certainly.
So it's got 8 spark plugs there, Roger. I guess 2 of them are spare.
No, they're not for spares. Well, we don't use them these days, but you started them on trembler coils because there was no high tension mags around in those days.
Oh, okay.
And then the mag, as you think is a mag, was only a generator which you switch from the coils from that starting battery to the low tension magneto, which they supplied the current, and then there's a little distributor up on the dash with points on where the needle went round.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's certainly a New Zealand car.
It certainly is, and we found an article recently in 1905 in Christchurch where they had the old-time cars, and they called this an old-timer at the time. So,
Really?
but it was only, I think, about 1904 the car, but
Sure.
this is 1905 the old-timers.
An old-timer.
But
Wow.
it's quite high geared, and you wouldn't go up too many hills in top gear,
No.
but it cruises well.
What I've got here is a copy of Talking Trucks. This is a book I wrote a couple of years ago, and it's the history of New Zealand trucking. And it's all from the programs that I did between 2013 and 2016. I'm going to let this go for $25. So it's a special. So Father's Day's coming up. So if you'd like your copy, there's my phone number, 027 277 0717. Just send me a text, or email me, billhohepper@extra.co.nz to get your copy. $25 and the history of New Zealand trucks. On Saturday, November the 6th, we leave for another Bill Hohepper Old Truck Tour of New Zealand. We leave from Auckland and make our way to Wellington, cross over on the ferry to the South Island and continue down all the way to Richardson's Museum in Invercargill. Then we travel up the coast all the way to Wakefield and on to Rockville. All this and looking at old trucks as we go, as well as seeing a fair bit of New Zealand. We have 12 places available and people will travel by minibus. So if you have an ex-truck driving dad or granddad or somebody you know, maybe this special trucking holiday treat will be just the ticket. Maybe a Father's Day surprise. If you'd like to find out more, just go to my Facebook page, Bill Hohepper's 2021 Old Truck Tour, and all the details are there. Or just email me at billhohepper@extra.co.nz. So Roger, we've got an unusual car. What year is this?
This one is 1904.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's a very unique car. They only made them for the 1 year, and they never made that many. But man, they could go. They were fast. Some years ago, there was a film which went out around picture theatres all around the countryside, with two cars racing in England. It was the London Brighton race, and there was the wee Derrick twin cylinder, and the other car was a big spiker, and it was great to see the wee Derrick just wet all over the others.
Wow.
It's a big twin, although they used the same block for the four-cylinder ones too, but they really went well.
So this is French.
Yes, it's French. Yes, yeah.
1 year, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. For this particular model.
Oh, right,
These people started making cars about 1898, and they were good cars. There were a lot of them sold in South Canterbury here. Skeets and Bockhart and Timaru were the agents. Yeah. One is a Frenchman, one is a German, and there were a lot of them around. Wow. But there were never many of these because they only sold them for 1 year.
Sure.
But a great car. You know, you've only got to pull the throttle back on this thing and it just takes off. So you can see how it beat the big spiker car on the London to Brighton race.
Yeah. One of the unusual things, Roger, is that back seat. I mean, you're climbing through the back. So I'm just looking at this back door here, Roger. This is how you got into the back.
Yes, this is how you got into the back, which was they couldn't get in over the mud guards because there was
too high room.
And this was quite a common one for smaller, lighter cars. We're set sideways here.
Okay. A bit like sitting in the back of a Land Rover.
Yes. This here is the exhaust whistle, and there's four different tones on that. So the more you increase the motor, the different noises come out.
Okay. And this little...
That is a little pedal on the floor, which pulls that up,
Yes.
makes the horn blow.
Oh, okay.
See?
Right, puts a bit of pressure into the horn.
That's right.
Somebody's thinking.
Oh, they had all sorts of ideas. They were very well equipped.
Sure. And you're talking about the spare wheel. I mean, I love the way it just sits out on an angle.
Yes. Well, the story of this one here, Bill, this here is what they call a detachable. It clamps onto the beaded edge rim on the side here with the tyres flat, and it runs along beside the other wheel. And these clips here,
Yeah.
and the wing nuts there, and it's a great idea actually, and because you don't have to worry about your punctured tyre. You just put this one along the side and away you go.
Yes. Like a crutch.
Yes, that's right.
I see you've got a big. Is that more oil and oil adjustment?
Yes, that's the oiler. It's what they call a dry sump, and it's a drip fed. There's a couple of those go onto the two big end bearings, and that splashes it over the mains and over the rest of the motor. And when you first thing in the morning, we'll give a bit of a prime up there, which puts a bit of oil straight through.
And the other little tank on the other side there.
Oh, that's just it's a spare oil tank.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So these little armrests.
Yes. Well, this here is exactly as it was when it was new.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the steering wheel, I mean, that's one really fat steering wheel.
Yeah, well, they were quite a flat steering wheel. It had to be flat to get all the iron in.
Yeah.
But we had a new one of those made, but it was the same thickness as the... You've got to remember they didn't have power steering, it was power assisted. You had to have something about your grip and...
Give it the old one too.
Make it work. Yeah. And so you can steer your car.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I love this idea. Yeah.
That's a very good idea actually, because you know you can get a flat tyre well, and the dreadful things to get the bed off and to change on the road.
Sure.
A lot of people just used to put grass in the wheel and they carry on.
Yeah, that's right. Grass.
Yeah.
Amazing. What I've got here is a copy of Talking Trucks. This is a book I wrote a couple of years ago, and it's the history of New Zealand trucking. And it's all from the programs that I did between 2013 and 2016. I'm going to let this go for $25. So it's a special. Father's Day's coming up. So if you'd like your copy, there's my phone number, 027 277 0717. Just send me a text or email me, billhoheper@extra.co.nz to get your copy. $25 and the history of New Zealand trucks. International is one hell of a company. You know, they've made all sorts of things. Yeah. And I guess getting back to this buggy, this must be one of the first things they made.
Yes, they made them very early on, and I think they made them for customers and for some of in the States. There are a lot of unformed roads in the States, and they had to travel over rough country, and these lent themselves well to it. The big wheel, well, the ruts didn't worry you too much.
The carts have been in them before, I
That's
suppose.
right,
Yeah.
yes.
But what year is this, Roger?
1908.
Okay, so it's even later than some of the others.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah.
But they were, the type of going which these were on was just bloody rough going.
Wow.
With the Wild West.
Yeah, 1908 is a hell of a long time ago.
Yes.
Things were a hell of a lot different.
Well, they were made for a special market and the rough going in the West, and where these poor little cars got knocked about.
Yeah.
And these could go in and out of potholes and rougher going.
No, good on you, Roger.
Yeah. And International Harvester Company made these, and then after this they carried on making trucks.
Sure. When did they start their first truck?
Oh, the first trucks were actually these machines here, and they put a tray on the back. Oh. And then they just got a wee bit bigger. You can see some of the other trucks over there, solid tyres. They just got bigger and bigger.
Bigger and bigger.
And one of those over there is a 6-ton truck, and it's about 1918.
Roger, with that other buggy, this is sort of around about the same era.
Yes, this one here is 1908. These were made for a special market back in the States, and they stuck to the high wheels and the solid tyres until about 1913.
Really?
You still buy them when they buy motor cars with blown up tyres in 1906 or so.
So you had a tray on the back, you could cart some hay and some cow food.
Oh
and
yes,
whatever,
yeah. This one here was actually a service truck, and they used it right up until the 1960s, getting around town.
Good.
And they easy to start, and just a handy machine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then we've sort of got the odd-looking bonnet. What's the bonnet shape? What do you call that?
Well, some call them Roman nose bonnets, but I don't know. They're just a sloping bonnet to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And How's the company went to these in about 1918. Yeah. Before that, they had the radiator out the front here, and then they put the radiator behind here.
Yeah, I see that.
And the reason I don't know, don't really know the real reason for it, but it all worked well.
Yep. And is that a button? Is this a little button?
Oh, that's to let the handbrake off.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So it's not the gear lever.
Oh, hang on, reverse gear lever.
Oh, this
Yep.
reverse.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I see it's got the.
The accelerator.
Yeah, but I see in those others the accelerator's on the right hand side as they are today.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the line they went to the middle.
Well, let's not forget making speed. That's for slowing them down.
Yes,
But they made big numbers of these trucks, very successful trucks.
Sure.
Yeah.
And there's a bigger version?
Yes, there aren't that many of these big ones left. They were, and this is a very valuable truck actually. It's we're very lucky to have it. You put 5 ton, they're a 5 ton truck. You see the back wheels there?
Sure, yeah.
Everything's massive about them.
Absolutely.
And they had
Brick
lots of
floor.
gears, got about 25 gears, I think it is.
Wow.
So, and these trucks helped put Harvester on the map. They just sold so many of those, and the town truck, and these are the heavier trucks.
The heavy hauler.
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I just sit up
Certainly
in the
will,
seat?
yes.
Well, I think I'm just as high up here as
Get a
you.
bit further along, it'll be more comfortable for you, don't you, right?
I think I'm just as high up here as I am in some of the trucks of today.
Actually, your head is hitting the roof now.
Oh, well, imagine sitting in this all day long. You certainly feel the bumps.
They
And the
were-
fuel tanks in front?
Yes, they gave great service. They were utterly reliable and strong. And all the international trucks and American trucks, the Americans had high-grade steel, as the English
Oh,
didn't
right,
have.
right.
And you could bend these things and straighten them and do anything, they were strong.
Roger, I've seen one of these in action, and at the Wheat and Wheels convention they had at Ashburton a few years ago.
Yes.
There's a bloke who lives west of Timaru's got one of these,
Yes.
and he was showing us sort of going up and
Yes.
coming. I don't think it would go right over, but there's something wrong with the hydraulics. But anyway, it was there doing its thing, and I've got a photograph of one of these dumping into a Euclid dump truck.
Yeah.
And so in its day, somebody would have thought about doing that up over the top,
Yeah.
as opposed to sort of smacking up to the side of the truck and
Yes.
dumping it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me about this.
Well, Bill Hamilton was the UMCW of Hamilton, who owned Irishman Creek Station. Well, he was the one who they actually set quite an engineering shop up at Irishman Creek, plus down in Feely, and make a lot of war stuff during the war.
Yep.
And so after the war, he shifted up to Middleton and Christchurch, and he made loaders and all dozer gear. He was closely associated to International Harvester Company, and all his gear went onto internationals.
Wow.
And these here were a great handy tool. You put the bucket on the front, load trucks, and in town on section work, if you're around a house, there's very little room. Well, you didn't need much room to drive in and tip stuff over the back and screw round. And the TD9 dozer just fitted them well. They made them on smaller tracks, but they weren't of much use compared to these.
No.
My father had 5 of these bloody things.
Wow.
And they did a good job. One job I was on was building the road up to their house, Skifield, and today people go up there and think, It was a silly bugger who tried to build a road up there like with a TD9, you know. But that's all we had in those days, and it did it, yeah.
Sure. Let's have a look at the, I mean, the bucket itself, I mean, that's pretty sturdy. And you sort of put a reasonable amount of dirt in just in that little bit.
Well, when you're working a bit of a face, you wouldn't stop loading your bucket until it come up to about here. You'd bring it up. So the spill would be from there down there up to here.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the...
Bit over a yard if you've got it all set up right.
Yeah.
But they were a great machine. The fact that you didn't have to screw around.
No.
You just threw it over the back.
So this buckling is just part of the job?
Oh, it's somebody's been a bit rough and around a bit of steel, you know.
Oh, okay.
But they were a good machine, and poor old TD9 was working flat out underneath to manage it all. But Hamilton's made a lot of these.
Is this the same Hamilton who made the Hamilton jet?
Yes, it is. Yes,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So
He was quite an inventive old guy, but he learned it all the hard way. He was he was a contractor himself, and he made some bigger jobs all over the place. He made an airstrip on Great Barrier Island, and there's the railways right through the country. You work for railways.
Yeah, the guy was showing me something he built about a grader. There was something about a grader, some part of a grader that Hamilton put together.
Yes, could have done. I just don't know about the grader there, but I knew his other stuff, backhoes on tractors. You know, there's one around here somewhere. But every county had one, and there's a lot of contracts with these old. They use them from anything from digging graves to.
But the idea is you don't have to move. You just.
Yes. Oh, it's a splendid idea. And I don't know my father. If you didn't put a yard minute on, you was onto you. So the yard minute was actually quite a good output.
Yes.
And nothing else could look at them.
No.
Yeah.
Oh well, they've had their time in history. That's for sure.
They did. Yes, they did a great, wonderful job. And but I wouldn't like to drive one now.
Oh, well, good on you, Roger.
Yeah.
Roger Mahan, contractor Geraldine. Is that where you started?
Yes, it is. My father had an old worker's cottage on the farm, so I moved in there and also made use of his bit of a workshop. And
okay.
But within 12 months, I had 5 bulldozers.
Wow.
The work was just all there, and I had a certain amount of expertise in other jobs, which had a pile frame you could put on the back of them, and you could do so many things with these old tractors.
Sure. Well, Roger, I've got to take my hat off to you. You've had a wonderful career, and the machines that you've operated, the machines you've bought, the machines that are all on display in this room, it's an absolute credit to you. And if anybody wants to come here, I'm sure you make them welcome. So it's on the way to Geraldine, folks. You can't miss it. It's got a big dump truck out the front. I'm sure Roger would love to see you, or if he's not here, the team that look after him. And Roger, once again, congratulations.
Thank you, Bill. Joy talking to guys like you.
Good on you.
Yeah.
That's marvellous.